Hi, this is Amy from Amy's Free Motion Quilting Adventures.blogspot.com. I thought I'd do a quick little video on how I finish bindings by machine. I don't do this for all quilts, but on a utility quilt or a simple project, something I want to get done quickly, I like to do it by machine using a blanket stitch. The first thing is to always remember to put the binding, see my binding, I don't want to move my camera to show you that because I just don't know how to do that. Anyway, this is the binding. You can see it's stitched in the corner like that. I have put it on the back of my quilt. Right, it's not sewn to the front, it's sewn to the back. Now we'll flip it over and show you how to do this. I use a fine blanket stitch. Some machines do a better job on this kind of thing with a blind hemming stitch, blind hem stitch. With this particular Janome machine, I don't know if it pertains to all Janome machines, I cannot adjust the location and some of the other attributes of my blind hemming stitch to do this technique. So I use a small blanket stitch. I also have to mirror image the blanket stitch so that the stitches that go off to the side run in the right direction for what I want to do with this. The other thing is that I typically do this with a AccuFeed foot, which is a built-in walking foot for these Janomes. If I used my AccuFeed foot for this quilt, for this video, you really would not see the stitching very well. And so I am using this open toe foot. I'm going to go ahead and bring up my bobbin thread just like I do when I'm quilting, just because it gets it out of the way. And what else do I need to tell you? Obviously, I would not be doing this with black thread on a gray quilt. I usually use monofilament or a very fine matching thread. And we take a stitch over, 2 stitches down, stitch over, 2 stitches down. I actually have this stitch set up for a wider swing of the needle to the right than I normally would, again, so that you can see what I am doing. This is where a needle down and a knee lifter, I'm lifting the foot with my knee. There's a lever. The lower end machines don't usually have these. I love it. I love my knee lifter. You'll see at the corner how valuable the knee lifter is. It gives me almost another hand. You just keep that fold of the binding right on top of the line of stitching from where the binding was sewn on. It's very difficult for me to shoot these videos. My husband calls this the booby cam. And to be clear, it is not attached to my person, but you can imagine that it is located very close to that part of anatomy, being between the sewing machine and me. And sometimes I can't decide if I can see better by looking over the edge of the camera or looking in the viewfinder of the camera. So as I get down here towards the bottom, pull that over just a smidge and continue stitching. Getting into the corners is the hardest part. And again, this will not show as much with monopoly or a matching thread. In fact, when I get done, I'll show you the back. Now, what I like to do here is I just lift up my needle, and using my knee lifter, I'll move the quilt backwards just a little bit. I actually stitch down past where I might want to do that, just slightly past the corner. Lift it up now, and here I am using my hand to lift up the presser foot because there's an extra scoosh of room if I do it with my hand. I need to actually raise my needle up just a hair by hand in order to lift that up. I need that room. I'm going to be using my seam ripper again as another hand to bring that corner up to where it needs to be. Sometimes you have to rotate that corner around just a smidge where it is folded to get that proper 45-degree angle. Now remember, this is stitching on the front, so if you just flop your corners over without trying to get it at that 45, it is going to show. Well, I hope I'm not doing a bunch of deep breathing on here, but this is a bit fiddly and I can barely see what I am doing. Start to lower that just a little bit. I'm still holding it up with my knee. Plop that down. Now, the trick is, I don't remember if I was on a horizontal or a vertical stitch when I stopped. So I'm just turning it by hand. Looks like that was a horizontal stitch. It's another horizontal stitch. There's that vertical stitch down. Now, so when you can turn the quilt, and I know you can see those stitches quite clearly because they're done in the black. And see, I've got my knee lifter. I'm not using my hands to lift that presser foot. I'm using the knee lifter. Now, if I remember correctly, this is a vertical stitch where the sewing machine currently is. So I'm going to pull it up by hand using my flywheel, and I'm going to slide the needle over so that it falls back in that edge, just off of the edge of the stitching. Now that stitching that's showing right here is not where the binding is attached. That is a quilting line, and it goes off over here. So my binding edge is covered, and we just continue to stitch back down from the corner. One stitch over, two stitches down, over, down, over, down. Just barely catching that fold and keeping it right on top of where the binding is stitched on. This is the line right here where the binding is stitched on. I'm just going to pull it over, use my knee lifter there just to smooth that. think you guys get the idea, and since I'm going to have to rip this out of the quilt, I'm going to stop here. Pull it out. I'm going to go ahead and move the camera over a little bit. I am so pleased with this new camera mount my husband rigged up for me. He used some of his amateur radio supplies. I believe I have an antenna mount on my sewing machine table now, but it's doing the trick for holding my camera in the right spot. And this is the front side of the quilt. Again, I've stitched in black for your benefit. This is the back side of the quilt, and this is matching gray thread. And I think that is quite respectable for the back of the quilt for a finish on binding. And I'm going to turn the camera off in a moment. Oh, look at that corner. That's nice. And rip out all the black thread and restitch in a matching thread. I may use monopoly, I don't know yet. And I'll shoot another quick little video to show you. And I think you're going to like it. See, there's that nice corner. And I think it's a great method to try. I have a friend who has a lack of mobility in her hands and can't do a whole lot of hand stitching anymore. And I've shown her this method, and she just really enjoys it. And it does save quite a bit of time on quilts that you can get away with this. This is not something I would do on a show quilt, of course. I'm not doing show quilts at the moment. It's great for small gifts, for placemats, utility quilts. I've got a utility quilt that the kids use a lot, that I've used the monopoly on, and it's holding up great. And I'm just really pleased with it. And thank you for watching. This is Amy at Amy's Free Motion Quilting Adventures on the internet at freemotionquiltingadventures.blogspot.com. Thanks for watching. Bye.